Hi everyone. I'm sorry I've been gone so long. I had to take a trip to my daughter's and I ended up staying out there for Thanksgiving and I haven't had any chance to make any videos. But this morning I'm going to make one, and what I'm going to do this morning is I'm going to make mush. That what we do with it is we fry it till it's really crisp after we get it made, and we eat it with our eggs in the morning, and it is delicious, and I'm going to show you how I make that. And another thing that I'm going to make is something that my mother used to make, and it's called tomato gravy. Maybe some of you've heard of it, and I'll be doing it a little bit later on in the video, but it is real good, and it's good to serve over your biscuits. So what we're going to do first is I have some stew meat here, and I always cook my stew meat to make my mush. And I have probably not a little bit over a pound of stew meat. And I'm going to put it in this pan. This is my mush pan because it's Teflon. And when you go to make the mush, the cornmeal doesn't stick. But I'm going to put, go down a little bit with this. I'm going to put the stew meat into the pan, which already has 4 cups of water in it. I'm going to add a little salt to that. Probably a teaspoon of salt in here. And then I'm going to take this to the stove and cook this until the meat is tender. And I will let you know how long it took to cook this, but I would say a couple of hours, but I'll let you know for sure. And I'm going to bring it to a boil, then turn it down low, put the lid on it, and let it continue to cook till it's done. Then I'll be back to show you how I finish making the mush. Okay, I'm back, and the meat is done, and I cooked it for 2 hours. I turned it on simmer and put on kept a cover over it, kept the lid on it. I still like to grind the meat up, so I've taken it out of the pan, cooled the broth, and I've got most of the meat in here ground up, and I've got a little bit left to grind. I'm going to do that right now. I'm probably not going to use all of this meat for one. I'll do another one and save this for another time. But I'm going to put all the meat in here after I've got it shredded up. And that's what it looks like. And I'm going to put about half of this back into the pan that I cooked it in. And I've got 4 cups of the broth left in the pan because I measured it. I took another cup of broth and mixed with 1 cup of cornmeal. And I like to use white cornmeal for this. I like it better than the yellow. Sometimes it's hard to find. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put half of this meat in the pan. When it gets good and hot, I've got it on high. And I've got the cornmeal here with a cup of broth, which I'm going to put into and I'm going to add a little bit more broth. And I'm going to use this beef bone broth. I've been drinking this hot in the morning in a coffee cup because I think it's healthy for you. And I have arthritis, so I like to drink it because I think it gives you bone strength and strength in your muscles, and that's what I do. So, but it's so good for you. And I'm going to use this in the cornmeal, and I'm going to add enough in here to make it so it will pour into the broth. And then I'll keep adding more cornmeal till it gets to the consistency that I want. And I also will add some salt, more salt in here. I'm going to add another teaspoon of salt because this bone broth that I'm adding, this beef bone broth, it does not have any salt in it. It's just pretty bland. I salt it when I drink it in a cup. I sprinkle some salt in it. And I'm going to get the Pam out if I know where I put it. There it is. And I'm going to spray my pan. And I'm going to use a bread pan. So spray it with Pam. Set it right there. And this broth is starting to come to a boil. So I'm going to start adding the meat. And like I said, I'm only going to put about half of this meat in here because there's plenty of meat for maybe a couple of more loaves of mush. Now I'm going to stir in the cornmeal. I need a different spoon. Try to tip this down towards the pan. Nope. Whoops. Yeah, I think you can see that. Okay. Got the meat stirred in, and I'm getting ready to stir the cornmeal in. 1 cup of cornmeal and 1 cup of bone broth, beef bone broth. I don't know if any of you have ever made mush before. My husband loved mush, and he liked it often. And my brother-in-law would come to my house, and I'd tell him I'm getting ready to make some mush. And he just felt so sorry for us because he thought we had to eat mush to live on. He didn't know how much we liked it. Some people dip this out in a bowl and eat it like that, the mush. That's not what we do. I put it in a pan, and I'm going to stir in more cornmeal. I put it in a pan, and turn it down just a little bit. I'm going to measure this as I add it so you'll know how much more I've put in there. I'm going to put in another cup if it will let me. It's not, you can't see very well. Turn it down a little more. It's starting to bubble and pop. I've just used about half of that cup. I'm stirring this all in. That's what I like about this Teflon pan, because the mush doesn't stick to the pan, which is a good thing. Okay, I put another whole cup of cornmeal in there. Sprinkle in some more. I don't like any moisture in there much. Just keep adding the cornmeal till it. Hope you can see this okay. See, it's getting nice and thick. That was another half cup that I've added. So it's got 2.5 cups of cornmeal in it. And the next thing I'm gonna do is put the lid on it and simmer it for 5 minutes. Okay. Turn the light all the way to simmer. Put the lid on, and we'll check it in 5 minutes. There we go. Now, I also told you that I was going to make tomato gravy, but I may wait. Let me get my camera up here. I may wait till in the morning again, because the day got away from me today. And I may wait till in the morning and do that so that we can have it for a breakfast meal, and I'll put it on my leftover biscuits that I had. But what I'm going to do is let this mush simmer for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to put it in that loaf pan, and I'll press it down, and I'll be back when I get ready to do all that, okay? See you in a little bit. Okay, we're back over here. I've got the pan on the counter, and I'm going to put the mush in the loaf pan. And hope you can see everything. It's really, really hot. But it comes out of the pan really easy. Makes a nice big pan full. And I added to this 2 tablespoons of butter and let it melt and stirred it up in it. And you want to mash this down because it needs to get real solid. And I'm going to see. Use a little bit of parchment paper to press that down there. Parchment paper on top, and what I do is I take another pan that's the same size and push that down in there and smash that mush and press it really really hard down in there and get it so it'll be really solid. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is, this is very hot. I'm going to let this set out on the counter till it cools. Then I'll put it in the refrigerator, covered up. And in the morning, we'll fry us some mush. And you'll see, this is so, so wonderful. It has a really good flavor. And you can eat it with your eggs, and it's got a great crunch to it. You know me and crunch. So anyway, that's what we're going to do for tomorrow. And then after we get that made, I'll make the tomato gravy in the morning. And we'll put it over the biscuits. And it is really, really good. I hope you'll all try it and see if you like it. Okay. Thanks, everybody. See you tomorrow. Good morning, everyone. I told you I'd be back. And we've got the mush out of the refrigerator. Been chilled. And we're going to turn it up and see if we can get it to come out of the pan real good. Just take my knife and go along the edge. I did spray the pan. Okay, let's see what happens. Oh, there's a nice loaf. And what I'm going to do is slice this up in slices. Now that's another reason that I like to grind my meat, is because if you have big hunks of the stew meat in here, it's harder to cut. Sometimes it makes holes in your mush, which is okay, but it still fries up good. Now, some people like their mush sliced thicker than this. Some people don't. I only care if it's crunchy. I've got my skillet over there heating, and I've got Crisco in it because Crisco fries it up so much better. I'm going to take my slices over there. We'll see how hot it is. Looks like it's getting pretty hot. My hot pad, where did he go? Over here. I had my light up pretty high. I'm going to turn it down a little bit. And it's falling apart. And it doesn't really matter. Oh boy. Turn that down a little more. Got a little splatter screen on there for just a minute. And then, what else I would normally be doing is frying up some eggs, which I'm going to do after a bit, but I do have some family coming for breakfast this morning, which makes me happy, so I'm going to wait and fry all that up when they get here, which you all know how to fry an egg, so, but I'm just going to tell you how good it is with an egg. Okay. And I like to fry this till it starts turning brown. I'm going to go ahead and cut that in two because it seems to want, and it doesn't matter what size your pieces are. This is already pre-cooked. The cornmeal is done, the meat is done. So basically, all you're doing is frying it to the crispness that you want. Golden brown. Golden brown. I'll get a paper towel here to put it on. Turn it over. And you see how nice and golden brown it is. And some people like to put this on their plate and put syrup over it too, which that's not the way we like it, but some people do. We just like to spread a little butter on it and eat it with our eggs. And if you haven't tried mush before, and it takes the place of your bread, and it's really good. With it, get a little more crunchy. Now, we're going to make some tomato gravy. And I'm gonna get out a couple of spoons here. And I could measure this, and what you do is you use the exact same amount of grease as you do flour. It'll be the same. If you use a 1/4 cup of grease, you use a 1/4 cup of flour. Get the he flipped out of there, didn't he? This is not a very good little flipper. Okay, we're about to get her out of there. There, got her on the plate. Take that back. Turn the burner off. And I'm going to put some bacon grease. What I put in there was about a heaping serving spoon full of grease. And then that's what I'm gonna, how much flour I'm gonna put in there. When I'm ready for it. Now, while that's getting hot, I'm gonna open a can of crushed tomatoes. This is just a regular size can of tomatoes, which is 15 ounces. Okay, there's the tomatoes. And we're going going to put a little salt in it in a minute and a little pepper. When this gets good and hot, that's getting warm. I'm going to slip back in here and get some chicken broth. Maybe I'm not. I should have had that set out. I'm going to go ahead and use the rest of this beef broth that I started, and then I'll put some more beef broth in it. And that should be about ready for the flour. Here comes the flour. You can see how much I've got on my spoon. And sprinkle that in there. Oops. There went my splatter screen. Okay, now I'm going to start stirring this. You want to cook this flour until it gets cooked good, and you can brown it to however brown you want it. I'm going to add some salt. And I'm going to add about a teaspoon. Remember, the beef broth had no seasoning, salt in it. And add some pepper. I'm going to add just a sprinkle more of flour. Okay, then we're going to pour our tomatoes in here. I like it. You can use chopped tomatoes or whatever you want. This was stewed. Now I'm going to start adding my broth. Can you see me? No. Now you just add as much broth as you want for the thickness that you want of your gravy. If you like your gravy thick, don't add quite as much broth to it. And then if you want it thinner, add more. I'll keep stirring this around. And I'll have to taste it to see if it's got enough. Seasoning in it. Now I'm going to add a little bit of milk to it. I'm going to put a little bit of I've probably got maybe a half a cup of milk, and I'm going to add a little flour to that. Stir that up in the can to get all the goodness out of the can. I'm going to get my little whisk. Make sure I get all the little lumps out with the flour. Pour that in there. And I'm going to have to taste this because I don't have any idea how salty it is. Oh, it's just right. Perfect. That is so good. But I'm going to do something else that I normally do when I'm using tomatoes. That's I add just a little bit of sugar to it. Not enough to make it sweet, but enough to take the acidy taste out. So this is just a little tiny bit of sugar. You can see when I sprinkle it in there. That's all I'm going to put. I always add a tiny bit of sugar to anything that I cook that has tomatoes in it. Okay. Now I'm going to taste this again. That's really splattering all over the stove. And now I'm dripping all over the stove. Perfect. Perfect. That is going to be so good over our biscuits. I had some biscuits left over that I'm going to put in the air fryer and heat up. And this, I'm going to turn this way, I'm going to turn it off for a little bit. That is just perfect. Perfect. I hope you all try this if you haven't ever made tomato gravy. You can use stewed tomatoes, or you can use just chopped tomatoes if you want, whatever you think you would like best in the gravy. Okay, well, that's our tomato gravy. When I get a plate it up with the gravy over the biscuits and the mush. Oh, I wanted to show you the mush. I got it cooled down. And I wanted to put a little butter on this little piece right here. Like I said, you could put honey or jelly or syrup or anything that you wanted on there. Can you hear the crunch? This is so good. And it's got that meat flavor, which flavors the mush, plus the good broth that we cooked it in. This is such a good flavor, and especially to eat with your eggs. You can't beat mush. You can't beat mush. It's so good. And like I said, it's hard to find white cornmeal. But you can use yellow, but it's not as good as the white. This is so good. I love it, and I think you will too. I hope you try it. I hope you let me know that you try it. I hope you enjoy the tomato gravy over your biscuits. And I'll see you soon. Please hit the subscribe button and like. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Bye for now.